to the Outdoor Sports Club channel, everybody. This is one of those videos that is sort of a philosophy video, I guess you could say, and it's one of those that hopefully will be helpful to some people, and one that I want my kids to have access to for all eternity. So this is about finance, and I'm going to break this down. I'm actually going to do several videos and maybe some more in the future, but I've got at least two that I want to do because it's like I need to break it down into smaller subjects, and so I'm going to call it Financial Fridays, but we're not going to release on Friday because it's not allowed on Financial Fridays. So what I'm talking about in this particular video is amortization and the idea of trying to understand the total cost of an item that you're going to put on loan or get a loan taken out to buy, and you need to understand the total cost of that instead of just the monthly payments. A lot of people only worry about the monthly payment and the interest rate, and there's more to it than that. You definitely need to make sure that you can afford it every month, but that's the only part where I care about the monthly payment. In fact, I don't mind the monthly payment being small, but I tend to pay as much as I can on a given month, unless there's no penalty for not paying more. So if it's a 0% interest loan and there are no finance charges if I don't pay a certain amount, if I pay the minimum payment this month, am I going to get any finance charges or am I going to get any interest? And if the answer is no, then there's not a problem with not paying more. But if there's any penalty whatsoever, interest or finance charges, I pay as much as I can. As much as I can afford to pay is usually the way to go. So why does this matter? And it matters because your long-term financial success depends on it, and because you can save so much money over time by not paying interest, basically. So let's look at a couple of notes here. These are kind of rough values. These are fairly accurate amortization tables, and amortization is basically just the payments and the interest and the principal, basically the balance remaining each month. And I don't have my rows lined up here. I apologize for that. But basically, we've got a $30,000 car note at 3%. This one over here is a 6-year, and this one over here is a 4-year note. And we're making some giant assumptions. We're saying that the first year depreciation is $7,500 in both cases. The average annual depreciation, I don't know why. I don't remember why I have it higher. I depreciated. I don't know why these are. I looked these values up, so I'm not really for sure why they are the way they are. But anyway, the value at the end of the 6-year note, the value of the car, we're just guessing based on these depreciation values, is $9,800, right? The average annual depreciation, you'll notice, is actually lower. So that is benefiting this 6-year note more than I think it probably should. But anyway, the value of the vehicle at the end of the 4 years is over $14,000. So there's a large difference in these two values. You have a more valuable car, obviously, at the end of 4 years than you do at the end of 6. At the end of 4 years, this car over here, we're assuming it's the same car. It would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $14,237, more or less, depending on how well you take care of it. So this is making some assumptions, but the cars are worth the same amount essentially over time. It's just that this one we're still paying on the note at 4 years, and at the end of 6 it's this amount. So that's why we're saying that. I want to make sure that that's clear. So now if we look at sales tax, which is the same on both, you can't see it, but it's basically $600 on both, plus interest, plus the depreciation, the total cost of ownership on this one is $23,610.13, where on this one it's $18,235.93. So this is and the reason for this is because you have a value at the end of the note. The car is worth something, so if you sold it, you could get about that for it. And then you've got everything that you paid basically everything you paid minus this value at the end equals this. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you sold it for, if you gave it away for $0, it would cost you $30,000. It would have cost you $30,000 plus your sales tax, plus your interest, plus your depreciation, because you didn't get any value out of it, right? So it's going to cost you more than this $30,000 that we got up here in both cases. So we're basically just looking at the value we have left. If we could sell it, if we could turn it into cash, then all our total expenses minus that amount of cash we got back is what it actually cost us to purchase the car. And that's why depreciation matters. It doesn't feel like a real cost, but it's a real cost. So we need to look at the depreciation, and that's why long-term notes, that's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of long-term notes. And while we're talking about that, another reason I'm not a fan of long-term notes is because they make vehicles more expensive. So as demand goes up for vehicles, the price goes up for vehicles. People start charging more, and they can get away with it. Dealerships, manufacturers, they're charging more in part because the demand is going up. So we're seeing $60,000 and $70,000 pickups right now, and $40,000 cars that used to be $20,000 to $25,000 are over $40,000 now in a lot of cases, because people are paying it. So if they can get away with charging you for it, then they will. But one thing that's happening is people can't actually afford it on a 4-year note or a 5-year note. And so because they can't necessarily afford it, financial institutions and even car dealerships or the finance departments thereof, if you will, they will extend those notes even further because they want to loan you the money. They want you to buy the car. They want to make their interest, so they're going to extend the term. So what used to be unheard of, 5-year notes, is now a very short term. And now there are 6-year notes and 7-year notes. I've even heard of some 10-year notes on vehicles. So what happens, though, is more people can afford them, sort of, because they can afford the monthly payment. More people go buy the cars, and so then the demand goes up and the price goes up. So let's look down here. The grand total on the 6-year note, this is, I should have blocked this or split this, but well, I didn't. Anyway, this is the payment. This is the amount going to principal. This is the amount going to interest, and then this is the balance. I should have put a column header on that. But anyway, so our total payments is right here. Our total principal that we've paid is the $30,000, and this is the interest we paid. We paid $2,800 in interest. Really doesn't seem that bad over the course of 6 years, and it's really not. So I'm not, that's not a scary number. Over here, we basically paid $1,000 less than over here. So we saved ourselves $500 a year by paying it off in 4 rather than in 6. And but because of that depreciation, we actually saved ourselves more money this way. One thing, this isn't about cars. This is also true about houses. So I'm going to talk about houses real quick. The same thing is true for houses. But what's interesting about houses is everybody looks at those as an investment, like you're investing in a house. But if you adjust for inflation, property, real estate, that kind of thing is usually it's give or take. Like, it's sometimes a good investment and it's sometimes not. It doesn't really beat a lot of other investments because of the fact that if you adjust for inflation, the value does what the value of everything else does. It kind of goes up and goes down sometimes. But one thing I got to looking at, we do houses on 30-year notes, and it's weird because at just over halfway through that note, like 16 to 18 years depending on the note, in the examples that I looked at anyway, in about 16 to 18 years you had paid in the original balance of the loan, or the original cost of the house. So on a $120,000 house, and it depends on the amounts and things like that, but on a $120,000 house, I think I had it at like 4% interest or something for 30 years. And obviously if the interest is higher, it's going to take less time maybe? Less time. I'd have to work it out. But anyway, I think in my case, 16 and a half years on the $120,000 note, the loan had cost $120,000 if you just looked at principal and interest. So if you saved diligently for 15 years, you could buy it outright and you would save like $86,000 in interest over the course of the loan or something like that. I can't remember exactly what that number was. Well, maybe it's here. Nope, that's a different thing. And that's a different thing. Anyway, so it's something to think about. And the reason we don't do that is because we all want stuff now. We don't want stuff later. We want stuff now. We want to live in the house now, and most people can't save that. If they've got the money, they spend it. So you're not going to save $600 every month towards your house payment when you're not making a house payment. You're going to go spend it on something else. But if you could save the $600, if you could be diligent, you could save the money over the course of 10 to 15 years and at least pay a bunch down on a house so that you barely owe anything on it, and you've got a ton of equity from the start, which would be much smarter, and it would save you so much money over the course of the life of the loan. You could buy the house and then start saving money immediately because you don't owe anything on the house. And after the 30 years, so let's say you got the loan. Over the course of 30 years, you bought a house. Let's say you saved 15 years, bought the house outright, and then saved the other 15 years. You would have a house and $86,000 at the end of it, as opposed to just a house. So in the meantime, you could save up money and work on the house, improve the house, save up for a bigger house, and have $86,000 towards the other house, and then sell this house for, let's say you just get what you put into it. You paid $120, you sell it for $120. Now you've got over $200,000 to buy your next house. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you guys can see the benefit of saving the money and trying to do it without the credit instead of going out and getting the credit. It's hard to do, especially on a house, because houses are expensive. But once again, the more people get loans for houses and the bigger loans they get, the more expensive the houses get because they're more accessible. So it drives the market to increase the prices. But you can save a lot of money by saving up to go buy things instead of getting the loans to buy. Thanks for tuning in to Financial Fridays, not on Friday, and I'll check you next time.